Are you a forward thinker? Then you need an HR and finance platform that thinks like you do. Workday is the AI platform that helps propel your organization, your workforce, and your industry into the future. Workday, moving business forever forward.
The rural way of life is about making everyone feel at home. Tractor Supply chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business to transform intelligent customer service. Together, we put the power of AI to work across 2,200 stores, keeping things running seamlessly inside, curbside, and countryside. This is elevated customer experience. This is Tractor Supply with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
Hello, and welcome to Vulgar History, a feminist women's history comedy podcast. My name is Anne Foster, and this season, we're looking at, this part of this season, we're looking at the women of the French Revolution. And I have to say, some of these stories are real bummers. I try to stay in the moment of the story, but I know it's coming towards the end, and, there's not been a lot of happy endings. And this episode is like that too. But it's a different sort of point of view of the French Revolution because our main character is from the Netherlands. And I guess we've had other people, like wasn't Tyrone, one of the other people is from Belgium or something. But this is a bit of a different story, although she does end up in the same place as all of the other people. We're going to go through a lot of the events that we've discussed from other points of view already in the French Revolution. But I came across this person who is, Etta is her name. And just as I was researching some of the other women of the French Revolution, it's interesting because I start seeing sort of like, the women of the French Revolution. It's like, there's Olympe de Gouges, Tyrone de Méricourt, there's Claire Lacombe, Pauline Léon, like names kept adding. And they're like, and also there's Etta Palm de Elders. And I was like, who is this person? But I think this is it. These are the ladies of the French Revolution on the Jacobin side. We're going to get into some Girondins starting next week. But Etta was a happy surprise to me. And I had to dig around a bit more for information about her because she's not written about as much as others. And that's because, my friends, she was a spy. And one of the things about being a good spy is the stuff that you do is not always written down and you can't find it. She wasn't the sort of person who was posting all the state secrets on a Signal chat. Like, she knew her shit and she was good at it. And how did this woman from Groningen in the Netherlands end up in the midst of the French Revolution to the point that she's mentioned in a lot of sources alongside Tyrone de Méricourt or Olympe de Gouges? Well, that's a story we're going to get into today. And I also, huge thanks to several people from the Netherlands, people who speak Dutch, there are some names here, and I hope you'll be impressed with my pronunciation because I learned the pronunciation from several people from the Netherlands who recorded voice memos or videos for me pronouncing these words. And I listened to all of them / watched all of them. It's interesting. Most of the words, everybody said the same way, but there's some maybe regional differences in some of them. So I'm just going to kind of go with what feels right to me, but I'm doing my best. And the Netherlands Tits Out Brigade, you really showed up for me. And I appreciate it. So today's heroine is Etta Lubina Johanna de Rista Elders, who was born into a middle-class family in Groningen, Netherlands, in April 1743. See, she's such a spy, I don't even have a date, but I'm going to guess April 5th, because that's my birthday, and I vibe with her. So she's born April 1743, the child of Johann Elders von Nieuwenhuis, a wallpaper merchant and pawnbroker. Wallpaper merchant is an interesting job I don't recall having seen on this show before. And Johann's second wife, Agatha Piertonella de Sitter, daughter of a silk cloth merchant. So we're in a merchant class, although Agatha's family had never approved of this match because Johann was of a lower social standing than her. Even though they were merchants, I guess one is more like a fancy merchant. I guess silk cloth merchant versus wallpaper. I don't know the ranks of merchants, but anyway. Johann died when Etta was 6 years old, and at this point, Agatha took over the family's business, both the wallpaper shop and also, if you'll recall, he's also a pawnbroker. And her family, again, didn't approve of this. Like Ahata's family, like take all of the seats. They didn't approve because they didn't think that this was an appropriate occupation for a lady of her rank, but it's like, who else is going to run these businesses to like keep this household thriving and to keep little baby spy Etta, fed and clothed and housed? Come on. Ahata kept the same business partner who Johann had worked with in these businesses, who was a Jewish man. And this had an effect because in the Netherlands at this time, widespread anti-Semitism meant that there was discrimination against Ahata for working with him, and including the authorities withdrew her license to run a pawn shop and the business went bankrupt. So that sucks for everybody all concerned, but I guess maybe the wallpaper biz was still going, or maybe she had some family money from the silk cloth trade because they kept going and they weren't poverty stricken. And Ahata ensured that little baby Etta got a good education. She learned German, French, English, and perhaps a little Italian, which was much more of an education than a girl from a non-aristocratic family at the time would usually get. So Etta was really just like, I'm going to get my daughter trained up. And you know what? Thank God she did, because Etta became a spy and she needed all these languages for spy reasons. Was she being raised to be a spy? Was this like the Netherlands Black Widow program? I'm not saying it was, but we don't have the paperwork because of all the spy stuff. Is this like The Kingsman? Is that the movie about like British people who are spies? Like, is there like a spy school? I'm going to have to do a lot of theorizing here because, again, the spyness of it all, we don't have a super lot of details about Etta. So we'll just fill in the blanks. We'll have a nice time. These have been some grim ass episodes. So let's just have a nice time while we can. Anyway, Etta was thriving. She grew up. She was the it girl around town. She was the Serena van der Woodsen of her age. I think that's a Dutch name as well. But she was gorgeous. She was popular there was a university in Groningen. Perhaps there still is. And she's popular with the university students, like those guys where I was like, ooh, who's this gorgeous girl? And she had like charisma and talent and everything. We're going to see that later on. Like, people love to be around her and to tell her secrets, which is, again, crucial to her success later on as a spy. So in this time in her like teenage years, she received several marriage proposals, including one from a married man. So I'm not sure what that guy was up to. All of which she turned down. She's too busy training to be a spy. When she was 19, she fell in love with one of these students whose name was Christian Ferdinand Loderweg Palm. I'll say that again because I do have the pronunciation written down for me. Thank you, people of the Netherlands. Christian Ferdinand Loderweg Palm, who was the son of a prosecutor in Haarlem in the Netherlands. Her mother opposed the marriage, and I like the generational thing of like Ahata's parents disapproved of her marriage, that Ahata disapproves of this marriage for Etta. Etta didn't care. She eloped with Christian, and this is where she got her surname because she's Palm Elders. Like, she was born Elders, and then she married Mr. Palm. Anyway, they eloped, and it became quickly apparent that this was not a good match. She continued sleeping around with other people. He continued sleeping around with other people. She eventually became pregnant, and he's like, who's the father? She's like, I don't know. And he left her to go to the Dutch colonies of the East Indies. And he's not in the story again. He truly just abandoned his pregnant teenage wife. She gave birth to a daughter she named Ahata after her mother, but this baby died within the first 3 months of infancy because it was olden times. And that sort of thing happened a lot. So I do want to also mention, just in a nice change from the last several weeks of episodes, that Etta was a sexually liberated woman. We've had people in the last several weeks who were accused by Robespierre of sleeping around and being like slutty, trashy bitches, but they weren't really. But Etta was. And on this podcast, we celebrate sluttiness. And I'm just happy to have another story like this where there's so many lovers, y'all. We're going to get into a lot of lovers in this story. And it's just a nice break from kind of the grimness of the last few weeks of this episode. So anyway, Christian is off in the Dutch colonies of the East Indies. And Etta was like, well, like, they didn't technically get divorced. But she was like, It's olden times, like no one knows paperwork, whatever. So she just started claiming that she was a widow. Legal documents referred to her as Madame Palm. Later, she would claim that Christiane had been a baron, which is why later in her life she's known as Baroness Palm de Elders, or maybe de Elders. Anyway, like we love a rebranding moment. We love the Lola Montez vibes of this all. Just like invent your personality, travel to a different country, have a nice time. And that is what she did. For her next era, Etta became what is described as an adventurer. And she had such good social skills. What is it called? Like emotional intelligence. She was comfortable with higher class people, probably because of her mother's family. She spent time with them. But she could also like get down and like have a nice time with lower class people. She charmed everybody. So she's gorgeous. You know what? Was she gorgeous? I feel like her personality made it, that was what was most important. She was charming. Everybody loved her, like super popular. And 5 years after being abandoned by Christiane, she chose a new lover, Jan Minix, a young lawyer whose wife had divorced him after he had spent all of her money. So, Etta, is she good at, I was going to say, is she good at choosing lovers? Clearly, she chose a lot of them. But you know what? It's like she's not choosing someone to be her husband to support her. She just wants to have a nice time. And Jan Minix is the guy for the moment. So he was a lawyer as well. Oh, I said he was a young lawyer. And then he got a job. He was named consul in Messina in Sicily. And so he headed off with Etta by his side and they sort of presented her as his wife. I like the way that she's just vibing along. She's like, I don't need a marriage certificate to call me to be someone's wife. I don't need a death certificate to call myself a widow. She's just like doing the thing. While they were en route, though, she fell ill. She got sick and he sucks and just left her behind. He went on without her. But you know what? She's fine. She landed on her feet, so to speak, as she met a new lover whose name was Douwe Siertema van Grovestein, a former equerry, which is like a high-ranking, like he oversaw the horses for a rich person, which means he was also kind of a rich person, to the widow of William IV, Prince of Orange. And Douwe became her lover and introduced her to even higher society, where she thrived as well. And then, again, we're missing some paperwork here. After, I guess, someone who she met in high society was like, would you like to be a spy? And she said yes, because what happened next is she moved to Paris to become a spy. In Paris, she lived in the Palais Royal area. And through her connections, this is again where it's just like, we need to fill in some real blanks here. So she was friends with a lot of high class people who helped her just have an income. I guess she's being paid an income from her spy work. What this says is she secured a large income through her connections, benefiting from profits on shares in military necessities such as gunpowder and saltpeter. Saltpeter is the thing I looked up and I still don't quite understand what it is, but it's some sort of mineral that is worth money. So she was just like grifting her way along, really, like doing whatever she could, using all of her language skills. She's also being paid for her espionage work and her diplomatic work. Like some of her stuff she was doing was like spy stuff. And some of the stuff she's doing is like, could you go and like mediate this problem between these two nations? Like, she's just like, how is this your life, Etta? Like, how did you manifest this? And how can we all manifest this amazing life of just spy diplomatic work and have connections who set us up with profits on shares in, I don't know. She's doing amazing and I'm here for it. So her house in the Palais Royal, she lived in luxurious quarters. In her house, like so many wealthier women in the French Revolution, although we haven't talked about them for a while, we've been talking about less wealthy people, but she ran a salon like so many women did. So her house functioned as a salon for young intellectuals and politically engaged people. This is pre-revolution. This is like 20 years pre-revolution. So like there's people there talking about stuff, but it's not like the revolution's not happening yet. So she's doing all this, and then perhaps this is another way that maybe these are the connections who help her get shares, where she also was being a courtesan, which is so the closest thing now I can describe it to is like a sugar daddy, sugar baby relationship. Like she would just kind of like, be an escort, like fuck some men, and they would like get her, like help her pay for her house or whatever. Like she had to figure it out. She took a number of lovers while also being a spy for the Netherlands. That's why she's there, right? Like the Netherlands had sent her to Paris to be a spy. And she's being a spy kind of on these politically minded people in Paris who are coming to her salon. So running a salon is a pretty good cover for being a spy. It was around this time that she started being called the Baroness Palm d'Alders. Interior design note. This one source said she furnished her apartment in a rather coquettish style, which sounds pretty amazing to me. Her bedroom featured 4 large mirrors, one at the foot of the bed. I thought I was going to say 4 large mirrors, one on the ceiling, but like, you know who she's reminding me of, and I think it's the word coquettish, is Gabby Windy. Like, I just feel like she's got like a Gabby Windy energy where everyone's just kind of like, you're an unusual and interesting and beautiful person, and like, let's just tell you all our secrets. And she's like, thanks. Don't mind if I do. So she's in Paris being a spy for the Netherlands. And while she's there, the French Secret Service noticed her, and they don't know she's a spy, I guess. And they were like, could you be a spy for us, the French Secret Service? Could you spy on Netherlands for us? And she's like, bet. Yeah. So now she's a double agent. She's a spy for France against the Netherlands, and she's a spy for the Netherlands against France. And then somehow Prussia enters the chat, and she becomes a spy for Prussia as well. So she's like a triple agent, just sharing secrets with various people, running her salon, taking lovers, just like, what an icon. What a vulgar history coded individual this is. So this is, again, like the 1770s, like 20 years before the French Revolution, but coincidentally the same time as the American Revolution. So in 1778, when the American Revolution is still ongoing, Etta was sent by France to The Hague for some just kind of like, it's not even like spy work. It's not really espionage. It's more like market research. They wanted her to go there to see how did people in the Netherlands feel about the American Revolution. Like France wanted to know if the Dutch would support France. Like France was allied with America during the American Revolution. We know that because Lafayette did both, and he's in the musical Hamilton. So France was like, would the Dutch also join this kind of squad? Like, what are the vibes? Like, that was her job, just to kind of like do women on the street interviews and see what the vibe was. During this short mission, she ran into, guess who? Jan Minix, her ex, the one who ditched her when she got sick en route. It turns out he was now a spy for the British. Just spy versus spy drama happening. So she's just like doing all this spy business, just crossing national borders. And then we're not going to get into this in detail because this is not part of this episode. But in the 1780s, there were, shall we say, political upheavals in the Dutch Republic. So just to sort of explain a bit of how things were happening over there, because it's different from other places. One of my Dutch contacts explained this to me. One sec. This is from Kim. Thank you, Kim. Dutch Tidstrot Brigade member. So there's the Dutch Republic. So it was called the Republic of the Seven United Netherlands. So there wasn't a king. What there was a stadhouder, is the word, which means it's a person who's practically a king who looked at the military and political tasks. The stadhouder served one or more of these individual states of the 7 regions. So there wasn't a king in the Netherlands until 1815. So at this point, we're just looking at there's various stadhouders running things over there. And kind of like in France, there were some revolutionary people who were like, we should not be under the control of these wealthy elites. We should do a revolution. Like, let's do it. So in 1784, there was a conspiracy. A bunch of these revolutionary type people were scheming, and she single-handedly averted this conspiracy by, I guess, being a spy and infiltrating them and then telling people that it was happening. Like, she basically saved the life of this person who was a German person who was the personal counselor of the Stadtholder. And who this person was, who she saved, was none other than Karl Wilhelm Ferdinand, Duke of Brunswick-Wolfenbüttel, who you know better as the father of Caroline of Brunswick, a military hero, Karl Wilhelm Ferdinand. I was just like, Caroline of Brunswick's dad is in this story and Etta saved his life? like the crossing over of episode to episode. It's just like everyone knew everyone. In 1785, the Patriots' Revolt began in the Dutch Republic. Etta sided with the stadtholders in this situation, which is interesting because she would later side with the revolutionaries in France. But it's kind of like if this is your country, and she was raised, like her mother was very much like on team stadtholders. So Etta was also, but it's a different situation. The Dutch situation is a lot more complicated than France. Like France was like, there's the king and there's the aristocrats, and then there's kind of like everybody else. In the Netherlands, it was more complicated, and maybe we'll do an episode about that one day. But basically, for her whole life, Etta was always on the side of the stadtholders, who are equivalent to kings, but not actually kings. In 1787, the Dutch revolutionaries arrested Princess Wilhelmina, the wife of the stadtholder, and the Prussian army intervened to defeat the revolutionaries, many of whom fled to France. The possibility of a civil war followed, which could have exposed the Netherlands to the threat of foreign powers or threatened its autonomy. Etta Palm Dalders stepped in to mediate on her own initiative. Like, she wasn't hired by Prussia. She wasn't hired by the Netherlands or France. She was just like, hey, freelance mediator here. Do you want me to sort this stuff out? And she succeeded in stopping France from intervening in the conflict. Who is this woman? So, 1788, this woman is a person who is like a spy for 3 nations against each other simultaneously. 1788, in France, she was hired by the Dutch stadtholders to spread propaganda against the Dutch revolutionary faction. So I don't know if this meant she was doing like a pamphlet moment, or if she was just kind of like spreading rumors on the street, or I guess she's having her salon so she could just tell people stuff there and they would spread the words and information. And she's still getting lots of information to send along. So like people in the Netherlands were sort of following French newspapers to try to follow what was happening. And this is 1788. This is like the year before the storming of the Bastille, where the French Revolution starts up officially. So like shit was in the wind. And so she was just like, hey, the Netherlands, like stadtholders, here's what's happening in France. Like this isn't in the newspapers, but here's the word on the street. I'm Etta and I got this information for you. And then she's also spreading information around Paris from The Hague that The Hague wanted people in Paris to know about. And then she does, in fact, get a pamphlet moment. So someone, I did not write down who, and I don't know if anyone knows who, a pamphlet was published that was saying, like, the Dutch revolutionaries are great, the stadtholders suck, like, people of Paris, like, let's support the Dutch revolution. Etta was so affected by this, or maybe someone paid her to do this, but she published a pamphlet defending the Dutch stadtholders. Not just any pamphlet, a 36-page pamphlet. So she's just like, listen up, y'all. Like, here's what's going on. She became, or had right away, because she was always on the side of the stadtholders. She was an opponent of the approximately 6,000 Dutch exiles in France. And so she defended the Dutch stadtholders against their attacks. So here's kind of where she's coming from. I forget if I even said what my sources were, but my sources were Women in World History essay by David S. Newhall. I was looking at her Wikipedia page as well. But some of the information I was reading was saying, like, it's kind of like hard to understand her politics because she supported the stadtholders in the Netherlands, but then she supported the revolutionaries in France. And like, isn't that inconsistent? And it was not, because it's 2 different countries and 2 different situations. So why she was against the Dutch exiles in Paris, she saw them as aristocrats masquerading as democrats in order to preserve and extend their old political privileges. She wanted to preserve the Dutch monarchy, or like not monarchy, but like the stadtholders, like that whole situation, but also introduce more democratic structures and practices into the Dutch regime. So kind of like what the Girondins wanted in France. So she's like busy with all this stuff, taking lovers, running her salon, being a triple agent, trying to prevent wars. And then the French Revolution kicks off. So shortly before the revolution started, like in the years prior, Etta was still hosting her salon, and some of the people who attended the salon included Jean-Paul Marat and Maximilien Robespierre. So like she was in on what was going on and what people were thinking and what they were saying. And even though these guys are coming to her salon, she was on the revolutionary side because she's no stranger to to being a double agent and to pretending to support somebody while you're actually supporting somebody else. Also, at around the same time, so in 1790, she was also still kind of like getting up in like the whole France versus Netherlands thing. Like, she was able to reassure and calm the French government regarding news about the Dutch government being involved with counter-revolutionaries. So she was just like, she's the person in the know. Do you know in the John Wick movies, there's sort of this like underground place where there's all these kind of like sexy librarian looking ladies who have lots of tattoos and glasses, and they use typewriters and fax machines to sort of like communicate with everybody in John Wick. I feel like whatever the previous version of that was is like what Etta was all up in. Like, she had all this information. So she, in terms of the French Revolution and who she was friends with and who she was siding with, etc., she was closely linked to a writer and translator named Louise Félicité de Carvalho. And she also had links to Olympe de Gouges, whose ideas she supported. She was all in on women's rights, which was, Olympe de Gouges' whole vibe. That was her whole thing. And so Etta, she's already like a notable person around town. Like, people didn't know at the time, presumably, that she was a triple agent. But she was this like glamorous salon person. And she gained, when she started being involved in the French Revolution, like, she was a famous person doing a thing, so people were interested. Maybe the first sort of notable French Revolution thing that she did was there's a meeting of the Society of the Friends of Truth on November 26, 1790. There was somebody was giving a speech defending the rights of women. And when this person was getting tired and was like, I don't know if it was like, what's it called, where you just keep talking and talking, the thing that they do. Anyway, I don't know if it was specifically one of those things, but this guy was getting tired. And then she took over. So she interrupted this meeting to talk. And as we know from all these episodes, like, women talking in a political club was like, Herman mon pills, the French people would say. And so she gave a speech. I guess she came with a speech prepared because the speech was titled On the Injustice of the Law in Favor of Men at the Expense of Women. And so this, I guess she published it later, maybe in a pamphlet. So her speech did not question like this tricky tightrope that all the feminists had to do at this time, where it's just like, we think that women should be able to do more stuff, but men should still be in charge of everything. So her speech did not question that women should be in the domestic sphere. She didn't question the fact that women were subordinate to men. But what she demanded was the possibility for women to intervene in political life. And this speech went over pretty well. So she was invited to make a formal speech. Like, I guess this was her just kind of impromptu speech, although it was later published. Later, she made a formal speech, which she did on December 30th. This speech was applauded by many, opposed by some, and inspired the revolution's first recorded discussion of the rights of women. That was her, Etta, triple agent spy, salon runner.
You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Progressive loves to help people make smart choices. That's why they offer a tool called Auto Quote Explorer that allows you to compare your Progressive car insurance quote with rates from other companies. So you save time on the research and can enjoy savings when you choose the best rate for you. Give it a try after this episode at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy. If you've ever shopped online, and let's face it, who hasn't? Chances are you've bought something from a business powered by Shopify. You know that purple Shop Pay button you see at checkout? The one that makes buying so incredibly easy? That's Shopify. And there's a reason so many businesses sell with it, because Shopify makes things easier, and not just for shoppers. They make it easy to start and run your business. Shopify is the commerce platform behind 10% of all e-commerce in the US, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands just getting started. It gives you a leg up from day dot, with hundreds of beautiful ready-to-go templates to express your brand style so you can get up and running fast. You can tackle your important tasks, from inventory to payments to analytics and more, all in one place. You can also spread your brand's word with built-in marketing and email tools built for you to find and keep new customers. And remember that iconic purple Shop Pay button that's used by millions of businesses around the world? It's why Shopify has the best converting checkout on the planet. Your customers already know and love it. If you want to see less carts being abandoned, it's time for you to head over to Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/realm. Go to shopify.com/realm. Shopify.com/realm. I love a multi-use beauty product, like an eye/cheek/lipstick. It makes a full face so much easier, plus you only need to bring one product along for touch-ups. And whether you're all about simple mascara and gloss, or you love to play with bold shapes and colors, you gotta have that trusty favorite you turn to for every look. Thrive Causemetics makes certified 100% vegan and cruelty-free products you can depend on for everything from simple daily wear to show-stopping self-expression. And it's all made with clean, skin-loving ingredients, high-performance and trademarked formulas, and uncompromising standards. And Thrive Causemetics is beauty that gives back. For every product purchased, they make a donation towards 8 major causes, including social justice organizations and those impacted by cancer and homelessness. It feels good knowing that when I purchase a product, I'm also able to give back to causes that matter to me. And one product I love from Thrive Causemetics is the Brilliant Eye Brightener. Like I said, I love a product that can have multiple uses, and the Brilliant Eye Brightener is just that. It's an eyeshadow and highlighter stick that's super blendable, and I'm slowly but surely stocking up on the 31 shades that it comes in. Try your new trusty favorites with an exclusive set for our listeners. New customers can get the Liquid Lash Extensions mascara and a mini-sized Brilliant Eye Brightener at a special set price with free shipping available at thrivecosmetics.com/thrive. Or save more with 20% off your first order at thrivecosmetics.com/thrive. That's Thrive Cosmetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/thrive for 20% off your first order.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. 3 couples, 4 vacations, a lot to unpack. Watch The 4 Seasons, a new series starring comedy favorites Tina Fey, Steve Carell, Will Forte, Coleman Domingo, and more in a hilarious and heartfelt love letter to long-term relationships. Based on the original Alan Alda film. Watch The 4 Seasons, streaming now only on Netflix.
Sexually liberated woman and speech giver. And now for a quick advertising break. And we're back. So one society even awarded her a medal for her speeches about women's rights. And so with this success, she gave more speeches. So she called for equal education for women. She depicted the sad status of women as, quote, slavery that mocked the ideals of the revolution. Here's a quote from her, which is, "Our life, our liberty, our fortune is not ours at all." She celebrated the virtues of women, and she evoked the example of the women of ancient Rome. So many people. The French Revolution is just people cosplaying ancient Rome so much of the time. But women of ancient Rome were pretty great. We've got Agrippina, we've got Livia, we've got Messalina, all people I appreciate. All people can get on necklaces from commandeer jewelry. Anyway, here's another quote from Etta. "Justice must be the first virtue of free men, and justice demands that the laws be the same for all beings, like the air and the sun." And so she called for a revolution in our customs. So just like for society to just like get its act together. And she continued giving speeches. So through the winter and spring of 1791, she was very active speaking and writing for women's cause. But as we've seen with all the other women who were doing stuff like this in previous episodes, there was a lot of the majority of revolutionary men were not in favor of women speaking up, especially about women's rights. And so they did the same thing they always do, accusate, they spread rumors about her. And it's interesting because unlike the other women, like Théroigne or Olympe de Gouges, they didn't spread rumors of like, oh my God, she's a slut who loves sex, where it's like, that is true and was true. It's like when somebody wants to insult another person, if someone's really worked up, like sometimes you'll just look for like, what's the most obvious difference that this person has versus everybody else in like society. And so for her, it's the fact that she was foreign. It's the fact that she was Dutch. And so she was attacked for being a disloyal, dishonest foreigner. And to be fair, she was a triple agent working for the Dutch and the Prussians and France. So many accusations came out against her. She was just like, bitch, like, sit down, like, I'm going to publish another epic pamphlet. This one was a 46-page collection of speeches, letters, and a petition entitled Appeal to French Women on the Regeneration of Customs and Necessity of the Influence of Women in a Free Government. She's just like, you're not going to shut me up? Here's a 46-page pamphlet. And she started working on establishing an all-female society in Paris. This is before Claire and Pauline's all-female society kicked off. So there's a newspaper called The Social Circle. And I think that's one of the clubs as well. So in the Social Circle newspaper, she made an announcement like, hey, I'm starting an all-female society. This is March 23rd, I want to say 1792. And then, yes, 1790, or it could be 1791. Anyway, March 23rd is the date. She announced that she was going to do this on March 23rd. 2 days later, she started the club. And it's called the Patriotic and Charitable Society of the Women Friends of Truth. Her plan was to create, this is sort of like inspired by the way that the Men's Society of Truth was running and some other men's club, was she wanted to have a network of patriotic women's societies all across France. So the societies would, like the men's societies, were set up like this. The society would be organized and connected by a central society in Paris, but there'd be like offshoots all over the country. Her society was focused on women's rights, and membership was only offered to women. And you had to pay to join the society as well, which was kind of problematic because a lot of people were poor, like the market ladies, for instance. But she wanted to use the dues that people paid to join the club to advance the prospects of underprivileged girls by teaching them skills, like how she went to spy school when she was a girl and how she got this education a lot of girls didn't get. So she wanted other girls to get these opportunities. She never actually succeeded in setting up the schools or workshops to teach these skills because it was the French Revolution and not a lot of people supported this. But she was able to use the money from this club to benefit 3 girls. She financed apprenticeships for them with the subscription money paid by the society members. She was, of course, president of the society. She continued giving speeches, and these speeches were about the social and living conditions of women, and they were heard widely and also published in newspapers and garnered popular support from Parisian women. She was a really skilled speaker, which is interesting too, because Théroigne and Olympe were both criticized for like not being perfect at English. But I guess people didn't attack Etta about this. She gained, listeners at meetings. She went to society meetings, she gave speeches, and that like won more people over to her cause because she was such a good speaker, and she spoke about equal rights, better education for girls, and the right to divorce, which was a pretty major thing. Because remember, her husband left her, and she was just like, I'm a widow now, just because divorce was complicated in a lot of countries at this point. April 1st, 1792. So she and a bunch of other people from her society went to the National Assembly to make an address. She asked the Assembly to admit women to civil and military roles. I don't know if that's supposed to say civic or civic. Basically, just like let women have jobs. She also said she wanted the education of girls should be based on the same principle as the education of boys, that women could become adults at the age of 21, which would mean that they would be allowed to choose their own husbands and things like that. And she also said that they should make divorce easier. The response of the president of the National Assembly was, yeah, no, that's no. 2 months later, Louis XVI, the king, his wife Marie Antoinette, and the royal family attempted to escape. This is called the Flight to Varennes, which they were caught, they were brought back, and this kind of inflamed everybody because everything inflamed everybody. So this led to a counter-revolutionary offensive, including a demonstration at the Champ de Mars on July 17th. Etta was probably there for that. This demonstration resulted in the massacre of 12 demonstrators. And when this happened, Etta took up a collection for the victims. She was like the original GoFundMe, just like picking up some money for people who were affected by this thing. And then because we're in 1792 and Robespierre is on the scene, that was suspicious. So she was arrested as a suspicious foreigner. Again, the foreigner thing is what people keep using as an excuse. The same night, another person who was arrested at the same time with her was a Jewish banker named Ephraim, who was thought to be an agent of Prussia. But both were released after 3 days for lack of evidence, thank goodness. And in fact, 3 months later, basically 3 months after Etta gave her speech about like, we should make divorce more possible, the National Assembly took direct action as a result of her proposals. They implemented that basically you could get divorced on a variety of grounds, including mutual consent, which was an important step towards women's liberation. Why did they suddenly decide to do what she was asking? Could it be because her latest lover, Claude Bassir, was a rising young deputy in the National Assembly? So he had a seat on the Committee of General Security. So maybe she was just kind of like convincing him to agree with her, and then he convinced the other ones. So like she's working every angle. She's working all the angles. So her society of like her women's society continued on until late 1792. And as it was going, it's not just like she didn't publish the 46-page pamphlet and everyone's like, oh, she's cool, actually. Like she got this lover in a highly placed position, but that didn't make Robespierre or people stop being suspicious of her. And not for the reasons they should have been suspicious of her, like that she was a spy, but just because she was a woman speaking out. So like she kept being trashed in the media, like so many strong women are. And for being a foreigner, for being kind of shifty, for being kind of shady, for like probably being a spy. And by this point, the National Assembly, maybe they knew that she was a spy because they had been like paying her to be a spy. So her reputation tainted her and the association, like her society as well, just because it was her society. And also everybody was still poor, still angry. Nobody had any money. And so her society ended up just kind of ending. Like not enough people joined it, partially because she chose as the patron of the society, this aristocrat. So a lot of people didn't want to be associated with that. But then also people didn't have money to join to pay the society. And also like women being politically involved was like a really controversial thing to do. So her society tragically ends. This is all the end of 1792. January, like we're ending 1792, now we're beginning 1793, January 21st, the execution of Louis XVI, which damaged relations between France and the Netherlands, which damaged her income stream because she was being paid by both of those governments. In fact, France declared war on the Dutch and the British on February 1st. And so this war basically disintegrated her job as an intermediary, as a spy. Like there wasn't a role for her in this situation. Like it was a war. Like they didn't need her kind of spies at this point, like women on the street spies. So her spy boss in the Netherlands complained that her information was of little value. And it's like, yeah, she wasn't on the front lines of the war. She couldn't get them that information that they wanted. And then in fact, she was fired from being a spy on October 5th, 1793. And guess what? We've seen this so many times on this podcast with women and other people who are serving their countries and then they stop serving their countries and then they don't get paid. So she hadn't been paid for several months, even though she had been still technically working for them. And she kept asking them like, where is my salary, please? They gave her a paltry 20 ducats, which I don't know what that is, but it says it's paltry, so it's not very much. So like she was not paid for her last year of spy work. And it's like, the French Revolution's happening. It'd be great to have some money. Thank you. So the whole Dutch thing fell apart. And like she's still being slandered in the press in France, but she was still technically a spy for the French government somehow. And she was subsequently sent on a diplomatic mission to Holland. And she decided to just stay there because things were not going great for her in France. And she just kind of stayed there. And I guess just being a spy like in the Netherlands, which was again in the process of its own revolutionary type situations. So 2 years pass and she's just in the Netherlands. And then the French Revolutionary Armies invade. So what would this be? 1795. At this point, the Bataafse Republiek, new kind of Netherlands republic, was proclaimed. And which is kind of like, I think, again, I was researching the French side of things, not so much the Netherlands side of things, except for the pronunciation. But basically, I think the revolutionary type people kind of took over at this point. And she fell under suspicion because she'd been on the stadtholder's side this whole time. And also because she was known to be a spy. Jan Munix, her ex, shows up in the story again. Both of them came to the attention of the Dutch authorities. And Jan was sentenced to be banished from the Netherlands, or from the Bataafse Republiek. Etta was put under arrest. She was sent to the fortress of Woerden. And someone else who was in the same fortress prison was her old spymaster boss who had fired her. And he was in comfortable political confinement, like in a nice room with a bed. But she was put among the common criminals, assigned a one-room cell, and allowed only 1 hour's daily exercise, which sucks for anybody. And I think for her, as a person who is just like so active, like that would have been really shitty. And she couldn't talk her way out of it after having been able to talk her way out of so many sticky situations for so many years. And there she stayed for 3 years. 3 years later, she was released on December 20th, 1798, along with a bunch of other prisoners. There was a general amnesty for political prisoners, and she just went to live with a friend. She's just like, what's my next move? What am I going to do? Like, if she considered going back to France, she couldn't really, because in 1798, we haven't even talked about what France is doing in 1798, but she had been pronounced an émigré. And so émigré was the word for that they called French people who left France because they didn't support the revolution, people who fled to Italy or England or places. And when you're an émigré, then all of her property and money would be confiscated. So if she went back to France, she wouldn't have anything. So they had confiscated all of her papers and property. They sold all but her political correspondence. I guess they kept the political correspondence for just like spy reasons. So she had no money and she had nowhere to go. And she was sick. I don't know if she became sick when she was in jail, and then it got worse, or if she became ill after she got out of jail. But what killed her, because that's what's about to happen, she had a breast infection. So I don't know if that means like breast cancer, or if that means like, do they mean breast like chest, like a lung infection, or like pleurisy, or I'm not sure. She died of a breast infection, March 28th, 1799, aged 55. She was buried the next day in an unmarked grave in the cemetery in Rijswijk. I forgot to ask how to pronounce this, a suburb of The Hague. And that is the saga of Etta Lubina Johanna Dorista Alders Palm, which is, I had never heard of her until I started reading up about other women of the French Revolution, and her name just kind of came up as like, oh, she was also there. And I'm like, wait, who is this? Wait, she's a spy? Like, it's just, what a fascinating story. And to the Netherlands listeners who helped me with this and who I now know are out there, like, what a cool heroine you have. A few years ago, when I was doing the Internationale season of the podcast, I made a goal. I stated my goal that I wanted to, at some point do a story about somebody from each country where there is a listener from. And that is still a goal that I have, like a long-term goal. And so I'm happy to have been able to do this Netherlands-based story and to learn a bit about how to pronounce Groningen. Did I say that right? I don't know. So it's time to score Etta in the 4 categories. If you've never heard this podcast before, we have 4 categories where we score the women at the very end of it. And then we see like where that lands them, who they're next to on the list of the Fredegund Memorial Scandaliciousness Scale. So the first category is scandaliciousness, which is how shocked and how scandalized were the people in this person's time and place. Because one person's behavior might be really shocking in one context, but maybe not in another one. So Etta, like, she was educated more than girls usually were in that time, girls of her class. Her mother was seen as scandalous for running this pawn shop with a Jewish person. And then she's being proposed to by married men. She got married and then he left her because she kept sleeping around. Like, I feel like and then she became gone. It was like a spy, a triple agent. Like, I think for women of this time and place, and again, I don't know a lot about the Netherlands, but from what I know about other Western European countries at this time, like, that behavior is not what was expected or anticipated of most women. Like, I think scandaliciousness is going to be a pretty high score for her. Although it's interesting that she was doing all this stuff, like taking the lovers, being the spy, everything. And then the only thing that was ever really used against her in the press was like, she's foreign. So it's like, she's scandalous, but do people not know that she was? Or like, Could they not mention these things because were her lovers too important of people? I don't know. I'm going to give her, because it's tricky. Like, she did stuff that to me is just like scandalous and awesome, but like she wasn't really, that didn't really bring her down. That didn't really ruin her. I'm going to say like a 7 for scandaliciousness. I think just because people in the time seemed kind of okay with it, bananasly, considering how sexist this France was at this time. Scheminess, though, this is going to be a high score because she was a spy, and then she got hired on to be a spy against the people she was spying for, and then a third party also caught her to be a spy. The way that she mediated and stopped wars, like she saved Carolina Brunswick's dad's life, like she was clearly on the ball, like she's coming with good plans, she was executing those plans. The fact that we know so little about her shows what a good spy she was. Like, I'm going to give her 10 out of 10 for scheminess, because for all of the above, like she killed it. She killed it literally. I don't know if she was also, like a assassin. It's kind of like Killing Eve, but oldie times. And that would be a good TV show or movie. Someone should do that. It's tricky to do the significance because so much of what she did was in the shadows. Like, it's significant that she stopped at least 2 invasions or wars, that she saved the life of this war hero, Carolina Brunswick's father. But so much of what she did was in the shadows. It's hard to say, like, what did she do? Although, in terms of significance, her speech was the first time that women's rights were brought up. Like, in one of these assemblies, she started the first women's club in the French Revolution. I'm going to give her like a 6 for significance. Like, these are certainly significant things. But if we're thinking on a scale of like 0 to, I don't know, who's like Harriet Tubman, like she's not, like Harriet Tubman would obviously be like a 10 in significance, like all the stuff that she did and the way that she's remembered. Etta, I'm going to say like a 6, like a respectable score. The sexism bonus is interesting as well because she was married, she was abandoned, she rebranded herself as a widow, but like, I don't know, like, how much did sexism hold her back? That's what this category is for. Like, we give more points to a woman when she could have done more if not for the patriarchy, if not for sexism. And I think Etta stuff got in her way, but it wasn't really sexism. Like, even when she's being criticized in the press, it wasn't for being a woman. Like, if a man had been in town doing the same thing from the Netherlands, being a triple agent, like, he probably would have been written about the same way. And then when she and Jan Minix were both arrested, he was banished and she was sent to jail. So maybe, like, is being banished better than being sent to jail? I guess, because you're not in jail. So he's treated a bit better. I feel like she'll get, I think, like a standard classic, maybe a 5 for sexism. Like, I'm going to give her a 6 for sexism. I think about, like, she had the child and then the child died, and the way that she was treated differently from Jan Minix when both of them were being arrested for both being spies. So let's see what this is. I believe, let me just double check. Yeah, this is a 29, which is really, with the exception of Charlotte Corday, the score that everybody is getting in this. Olympe de Gouges got 29.5. But I just kind of like that all the women of the, and if you're thinking like, oh, Anne, you're planning this ahead of time, that assumes that I can do math in my head, which I can't. So Etta Palm d'Alders has a score of 29. The other women of the French Revolution, Théroigne de Méricourt has a 29. Claire Lacombe and Pauline Léon have a joint 29. Olympe de Gouges, 29.5. So they're all kind of here at the same level. They're all hanging out in the same sort of place, which is sort of like, often it's like high, sometimes it's high significance, sometimes it's high scandal. I don't know. It's interesting the way that this is turning into sort of like a cool little cul-de-sac where all the French Revolution ladies are all hanging out together. Next week on the podcast, we're going to be switching sides. Never let it be said that vulgar history doesn't show multiple sides of a situation, because we're going to be looking at a Girondin. Well, I guess Charlotte Corday was a Girondin, but we're going to be looking at another salon-running woman during the French Revolution on the other side, and that's going to be next week on the podcast. And so if you want to keep up with me and this podcast, like, I'm on Instagram, I'm Blue Sky and Threads. I post there infrequently. The way that you can get more up-to-date information from me is if you follow my Patreon, which you can do for free if you go to patreon.com/AnneFosterWriter. I just post kind of like updates there, pictures from some of the episodes, links and stuff. Like we have a chat there. Anyway, that's where I'm posting mostly. Like if you want my updates, that's where you can go, basically. And then you can also keep up with me if you want to get like a 1 monthly email of all the highlights of what I'm up to. You can join my newsletter, which you can sign up for at vulgarhistory.com/news, and you just get an email once a month with some information. I'm also on Substack, where I post essays at vulgarhistory.substack.com. I post an essay usually every other week. And also regarding the Patreon. So you can join for free and just follow me. That's cool. It's chill. We recently just reached 900 members on the Patreon, which is amazing to me and wonderful. And I'm so happy that so many of you are there to keep up with me and or support me, because on Patreon, you also have the choice that you can support me and this podcast financially. So if you pledge $1 a month, you get early ad-free access to all episodes of Vulgar History, and you don't have to like listen to them on Patreon when you pledge that $1 a month. You can connect the Patreon, your paid Patreon membership, to Spotify or to Apple Podcast or whatever, and then you just get the podcast as per usual in your usual place, but just without the ad break in the middle or the ads at the beginning and end. And if you want to get a little bit more and support me a little bit more, if you pledge $6 a month, you get access to bonus episodes, like the after show. Last week, I did the episode with Gavin Whitehead from Art of Crime podcast about Charlotte Corday. And then afterwards, we recorded a little bonus after show. So all those after shows I do sometimes with my guests are there. I also have talking about costume dramas in the spin-off podcast Vulgar Peace Theater. I also have a podcast spin-off called So This Asshole, where I talk about shitty men from history. Coming up soon, Rousseau and Robespierre, and maybe Danton, and maybe Saint-Just. There's some pretty shitty men in this time period, and we'll see who I have time to yell about. Anyway, you can hear the bonus episodes when you join the Patreon for $6 or more a month. And I will say you can also do a trial. I think it's 7 days. So you can sign up for that, but don't pay for 7 days, listen to some stuff, and then you can like downgrade your membership. Like I won't take that personally, like do whatever you need to do. And also if you join at the $6 or more a month, you can join our Discord, which is just like a big group chat where we talk about all kinds of different things. We talk about at the moment, Survivor a lot. We've been talking about the conclave, the death of the Pope, just various things. It's just like cool people who listen to the podcast hang out. And again, you can join the Discord if you join my Patreon at $6 or more a month. And we also have a beautiful brand partner, Common Era Jewelry, which is a woman-owned small business based in America that makes beautiful heirloom jewelry pieces. And so this is like rings, they've got pendant necklaces. They also make some other like fabric-based things like scrunchies. And they also have plastic-based things like phone cases. And so they make beautiful designs inspired by women from history and also from myths. So I think I mentioned in this episode, like they have an Agrippina necklace. There's one about like Hatshepsut. Anne Boleyn is one of the people on there, even though she's a bit more modern. Anyway, beautiful necklaces, but also ones with women from mythology. And they also have a beautiful zodiac jewelry collection that you can get from there. Their pieces are all available in solid gold, as well as in more affordable gold vermeil. And whatever you buy from them, if it's a scrunchie, if it's a phone case, if it's a necklace, Vulgar History listeners get 15% off your order by going to commonera.com/vulgar or using code VULGAR at checkout. And if you want to support this show and me by buying some Vulgar History merchandise, you can do that too. So, and we do have some recent new additions to the Vulgar History store. We have the Tits Out Brigade t-shirt done in the style of a vintage Girl Scouts design. It says Tits Out Brigade. I think it's the first ever thing I've ever made that said Tits Out Brigade. A listener asked, like, when are we going to get merch that says Tits Out Brigade? I'm like, my God, I've never done that. Karen Moynihan, friend of the podcast, designed it. And then so you can get that t-shirt. And as an accessory, part of the same collection, you can also get some stickers, or there's a design, you could get the same design on a mug or a t-shirt or whatever. That's like merit badges like you get from the Girl Scouts or the Girl Guides, but it's for the sorts of things that Vulgar History people, we like to celebrate. So it's a merit badge for things like stabbing, embroidery, Vulgar History coded things. Anyway, that's all available. We have 2 merch stores. If you're in the US, you go to vulgarhistory.com/store, which takes you to our Dashery store. If you're outside the US, go to vulgarhistory.redbubble.com. And yeah, so you can get in touch with me if you would like to. If you go to vulgarhistory.com, there's a little like contact me button, and you can go there to contact me. My DMs are open on Instagram if you want to contact me there as well. Next week, we're going to be looking at, again, a Girondin, another woman of the French Revolution, because I keep finding more of them to talk about. So stay tuned next week for that. And until next time, keep your pants on and your tits out and your sans culottes and your cockade on your hat and elbows up, all the things. Talk to you next time. Vulgar History is researched, written, and hosted by Anne Foster. That's me. The editor is Christina Lumagi. Theme music is by the Severn Duo. The Vulgar History Show image is by Deborah Wong. Transcripts are written by Aveline Malik. Find transcripts of recent episodes at vulgarhistory.com.
Welcome to Gotham, Jimmy. It's not as bad as it looks.
DC and Realm present
Our vigilante, or Batman as he's called, possesses extraordinary physical skill.
DC High Volume Batman. Fear. I have to make them afraid. I shall become a bat.
Look there. What the hell?
The Dark Knight's definitive DC Comics stories.
He's got a motorcycle. Get after him or I'll have you shot. Take him down.
Adapted directly for audio for the very first time.
Thinks he's a damn Robin Hood. He dies.
Looks like it's just you and me now, Phil Cooney.
Hit the floodlight. It's showtime. New episodes every Wednesday. Follow and listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Batman hasn't attacked anybody. What do you mean, blow up the building?
From this moment on, none of you are safe. DC High Volume Batman. Available now.
I'm Amy Nicholson, the film critic for the LA Times.
And I'm Paul Scheer, an actor, writer, and director. You might know me from The League, Veep, or my non-eligible for Academy Award role in Twisters.
We love movies, and we come at them from different perspectives.
Yeah, like Amy thinks that, Joe Pesci was miscast in Goodfellas, and I don't.
He's too old. Let's not forget that Paul thinks that Dune 2 is overrated.
It is.
Anyway, despite this, we come together to host Unspooled, a podcast where we talk about good movies, critical hits,
fan favorites, must-sees, and in case you missed them.
We're talking Parasite to Home Alone.
From Grease to The Dark Knight.
We've done deep dives on popcorn flicks. We've talked about why Independence Day deserves a second look.
And we've talked about horror movies, some that you've never even heard of, like Ganja and Hess.
So if you love movies like we do, come along on our cinematic adventure.
Listen to Unspooled wherever you get your podcasts.
And don't forget to hit the follow button.
Can you actually change your personality if you want to? How does peer pressure work, and why is it so powerful? Should you ever really trust your gut when you make a big decision? These are just a few of the topics we've recently covered on my podcast, Something You Should Know. I'm the host, Mike Carruthers, and each episode of Something You Should Know covers multiple topics that are likely relevant to you. You'll discover things you can use in your life today, right now, like how to have a great conversation, how to be more courageous, the anatomy of the perfect apology, and much, much more. To date, there are over 1,000 episodes of Something You Should Know, and we've gotten over 4,000 mostly 5-star reviews. I invite you to check out Something You Should Know. Look for the bright yellow light bulb on the blue background. Something You Should Know, wherever you listen to podcasts.